Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan, and thank you for being part of our Spark Circle. Today, I'm with Mary Libby, an extraordinary woman who has held several careers in fascinating areas. She began as a municipal bond buyer for Loomis Sales. She ran the lower school of the Diller-Quaile Music School. Then she oversaw volunteers for the American Hospital Paris, New York show house, and finally moved on to Christie's as an international representative and vice president until January 2019. I'm just so happy to see you and have you here as a guest. That's so wonderful.
It's my pleasure.
I'm glad.
I'm always happy to see you, Junia.
Yes, because the jokes roll between us, right?
Well, the laughter must happen in life.
What's the role of laughter in life?
Rule of laughter, you have to laugh enough percentage to find a pleasure in everything that you can.
That you can.
Yeah.
Long years ago, you went through the Radcliffe Harvard business program. What drew you to doing that?
Well, I majored in economics at Wellesley, and I'd always talked with my father a lot about investing. And I just, I thought, do I do the education school at Harvard or do I do the business school? And I went on business. I only did, I saw no great career in it, but I think it's a good basic knowledge for women. And I did a year of municipal bond buying, but I was engaged and I resigned. So my career was short.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I loved
nerve-wracking?
it. There were very few women in
Yes.
that time, and that was fine too. I mean, it didn't make a lot of difference to me.
Yes.
It was fun, and the Dow Jones was was something in the 400s, as I recall.
Right.
That was in 1957, 8. I finished Radcliffe, and then I worked at Wellesley's admissions office for a year, and then New York was obviously what you do when you come to New York. Come to New York was inevitable.
I see. And what did you learn at Loomis?
At Loomis Sales, that was an investment council. It was a Boston company. And I learned it was something about corporate life. I had never done much but played the piano at the nursery school and so forth. So in summers, I think girls, my grandchildren who go to New York schools, could very well be a waitress somewhere sometime and see what the real world is like. It wouldn't be bad for them to see you, but they are good people. And that is far from your question, but I did enjoy my year there. I'm glad I did it.
So when you moved here, was your boyfriend here? Although none of my business.
You know, I didn't know a lot of people. Now, people say to me today, how do you know so many people? Well, by the time you've had 3 children, by the time you had a music school for children, by the time you've been at Christie's for 28 years, by the time you've had all of these things, you know a lot of people. And my work has always been my play, and my play has always been my work. So I have been very lucky. I think working women have a good life. I been on plenty of boards and things, but I have enjoyed having a commitment to a job, and I have had a very good time.
What connected you with teaching, not teaching, but administrative work?
You know, my children had gone to that school, and so I played the piano, and I do believe without music, life would be a mistake. So I had been there, and I used to fill in when teachers were out, when my children were there. And so they asked me to be a teacher, and then they asked me to run it. This is the lower school, and this music school, which is for the educated amateur.
Right.
It isn't Juilliard.
Yes.
They aren't singers, any of them, in the opera that I've known about.
Yes.
But it was a very musical environment. And if you were missing a teacher for one of the classes, it was groups of 12 young people, little people. You could pick them up and move them around, which was very nice. 12 are easier than one.
Oh, why so?
Oh, 12 has a sort of group intelligence. You don't bite. You have to sit out if you bite. But generally, people are cooperative and want to be in a group. And if they don't, they can lie under the piano, but they can't lie in the middle of the group and be a participant. So it was groups of children and groups for every day for 4 mornings a week. It was the perfect job.
Is that with like nursery school age?
Yes, sort of. And I hired a psychiatrist to come once a month because she said she had never known such anxious parents, such people in her life who were more concerned. They equated getting into the next step with Harvard. And if they didn't get in, their child had failed. It was a tense time, and because they were new parents, many of them, you got to know them pretty well. So many of them are still very good friends. It is a anxious time in people's lives to get into these schools in New York.
So what did the psychiatrist do?
Well, she was there on a non-crisis basis. Elaine Hefner came once a month on Monday morning, the first Monday in every month. And she was there if they had a question.
Oh, what a neat idea.
She was just there. Well, they kept her on, and they just had a retirement party last year. I have been gone since '89, but she stayed on, and she was wonderful. And
how do you get people to get along, whether they're teachers or people in offices?
Well, I think musicians are a fairly cooperative bunch. I would say that were true of Christie's too, although I was, to move ahead, and much less political than anybody. I had my own department, so I wasn't aware. There wasn't a problem getting along. I think the key to running a company or a school is to not use the word I, to use the word we.
Yes, interesting.
I think that it is a cooperative effort. You take leadership and you make some decisions, but generally it's where we are doing this or we are doing that. I think that is my one key to management, to be fair to everybody and approach it from a we standpoint.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I still have friends who were teachers, and I had many of my good friends who were teachers. I never would be hired again, probably.
Why not?
Because I don't have a musical degree. I just play the piano and I go about my merry way. It was more a manner of getting together with music.
But what I'm struggling to say is this is sort of a recommendation. Some people have good instincts and learn quickly and may not necessarily need these certifications.
I don't think you can teach a lot of these things. I think there are rules, and I did take a certain number of courses along the way. But generally, I just think your instincts do serve you well in these institutions and in these circumstances. There are rules of teaching which are very educational and so forth, right. But everybody has rhythm. For that age of children, of Diller-Quaile age, you have high-low, fast-slow. What's there? High-low, fast-slow, and slow, so fast, but that's the opposite. There's a third thing, stop start, we'll say. Little children love to conduct other children. So the great thing was to be the conductor of the day, and they took turns doing the conducting. And they would just love to make a group stop. They felt they could make it go very fast, or they could make it go slow. And it was just a wonderful self-image kind of thing. I mean, there are all these principles involved, but it was just plain fun. So I had a large Indian drum that was much bigger than that table. That was this architectural center. I mean, I haven't talked about this since 1980, 1880, not quite.
Dimension.
1989 when I last was at Diller-Quaile. But it comes very naturally to talk about it now.
Yes.
But then music was always something in my family. And my children all went to Interlochen. My father saw
a camp
to that.
in Michigan, right?
Yes, where they had music. I grew up in music. So,
and also the Midwest.
well, that also it took place there.
Do you think that had say on your personality or worldview?
I think it was a very stable childhood. I mean, I'm not back there, you notice.
Right.
I don't think it was a good time in Grand Rapids because the furniture was the capital of the world in those days, and we were in furniture.
Yes.
So that was another part of the goodness of life. It was, I think I am always happy to meet fellow Midwesterners because I think they're a very special group. I mean, many of Aggie Gond is Cleveland, lots of Cleveland here, lots of Chicago.
I didn't know that. A lot of Cleveland here? Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Oh, the Marcuses, Jim Marcus.
Oh, yes.
Married Ellen, who is from Cleveland.
Yes, that's right.
And she, his fortune is at Juilliard, and she sold through Christie's, I might add. Happy to say that.
Yes.
Don't you know a fair amount of Midwesterners here?
Some, I would say. A fair
Chicago has been very big in my life here.
I find more visitors come to New York than come to
Well, that's the
Midland,
thing about
Michigan.
New York versus anywhere else.
Yeah.
They come from Brazil, they come from Europe, I don't know too many Russians, but...
What do you think is important to raise children in New York to know or value?
Oh, I think these schools are so privileged and they work so hard. I mean, my children have all gone to Brearley, which is a very good school. It's very difficult. They work pretty hard. It has a lot of standards. It's a very ethical place. There are more than one school like that. I mean, but they regard themselves amongst the top. And I think the value is that they are very contributing people to the world. I have someone who comes at my daughter's behest to help me clean out my house, get rid of stuff. She's one of 7 children. The mother was on the board of Brearley for 19 years. She is a hard worker. She finds pre-Columbian sculpture at my house. She calls one Brearley person. Something else she calls another. She said, it is such a uniform compost of people that you always have someone in your life who represents that. So New York is so wonderfully varied, and Brearley has always made an effort in diversification.
Do you think that, well, my bias is towards after school. Once you get after school, I think it's important to go away from whatever town you know.
Oh, I think you have to go everywhere to come back.
Yes.
One child went to London, one went to Hong Kong, one went to San Francisco. But they all are on the East Coast now. Yes. I think that is important to leave at some point and to come back if you want to.
Early on in my life, I wanted to go around the world because I wanted to see the different cultures,
Well,
because I
think that's
wanted
right.
to have to say some influence in my life. and not when I was in my 60s.
And you did.
I did, actually. Spent
Where
a month
did
in
you go?
India and Ceylon and all of them, Thailand,
Well,
Asia.
nothing like travel.
Yeah.
Do it when you can.
That's true.
I'm not sure I feel like standing in a line forever or going exploring the way I used to, but I certainly did plenty of that in my time.
What did you do for Christie's during the...
I was I was a little bit in every department, and I do know enough collectors that they were coming or going, either selling or buying. And then I also started the intern program. I'd been there for 1 year, and my fellow friends had children coming, and they would be in a department for the whole summer, and that would be their Christie's experience. And they didn't know each other, and they didn't really know much beyond their own department. So I combined this whole group of people to have a weekly talks and get to know each other. And so I have a couple of weddings in my credit. I have, many of them want jobs when they finish. These are children who come in kids who come in the summer, college kids. And they are, it's known as one of the great programs now. I haven't been there for 2 years, but I think it is very important that they have fun in it and know each other as well.
Yes.
So that was a big benefit of it, and it certainly benefited Christie's because we knew them and they knew us by the time they were ready to get jobs. We just can't take them all, but we do know them, and certainly.
And they have a long life.
They live a long life, and they know a lot of people, and they are connect. Once you're there, you're part of the Christie's family. So I'm very loyal to Christie's. I think it's a wonderful firm, and the auction business is a fascinating business.
Boy, and swings.
Well, it's a boy, and you know, should it be on the public stock exchange or not, is a good question.
What is your thought?
Well, I can see it not being. I had some Sotheby's stock, but during the collusion I sold it. It was interesting to invest and know what the other people. I had it before I went to Christie's. I think there's a good cause not to, and Sotheby's has been bought by a international investor. I don't know where it's going, and either do a lot of people. Christie's is an English company by origin. It's owned by a French billionaire. For years, the two French billionaires, owned Phillips and Christie's. And the French billionaire lost a lot of money. It is not the biggest market in the world for the very top stuff. Yeah. Whereas we and Sotheby's do get the top stuff now. Now it's a very competitive business compared to when I began. When I started, we didn't have email.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it shows you what 20 years will do. We didn't have email. We didn't have any of the things on the web. I mean, it's all moving. It's such a fast pace. The spring sales were very hot. This last round hasn't been so hot. I think the reason, to go back to your question, is should it be public or private? Art is such an emotional subject, but it's also the swings in the market on the day of a sale. You're subject to the mercies of the auction world are very related to maybe the stock market that day.
That day?
Well, if there's a sinking day, people race to lower the reserves.
Is that right? Yeah.
Well, you know the structure of an auction house. You can sell for the seller. Chandelier bidding is a big issue that people don't.
What is chandelier bidding?
Chandelier bidding is you can bid for the seller
right.
up to the reserve. then you cannot. That's bidding against yourself until the reserve is met. And the reserve is the price at which you are willing to part with your object. It is often a percentage of the lower estimate. There's high and there are low estimates. And so they vary by a large percentage, 150%. So they think you're bidding maybe false bids. Well, they are false bids in that they from the seller, or they're from the audience, or they're from the internet.
Yeah,
now we're selling a lot on the internet. We're doing a lot of things to keep up with the competition. There are many artsy people. There are many new venues for selling.
Are you still in that world now that you've
I
sort
still
of graduated?
am. I still have friends who call, and they want to know who is in charge of what department, or who to see for a contemporary painting. Or just the other day, I saw somebody, Trattoria at Carnegie Hall. They have American paintings they want to sell, so I must do that when I go home.
Right.
I call them and tell them who's the head of the department, and then I'll call the department and tell them they're going to be hearing from these people. Yes, I think it's a long-term association. There is a man.
That's nice to have that.
It's very nice. It's very nice, and I saw a lot of people last night who the heads of departments all went to this opening at the Met, which I urge you to do.
Yes, I've gotten the hint.
Well, you would have a good time. And then the armor of Maximilian, Emperor Maximilian, is in the next booth at the Metropolitan. So now is a good time to go.
Do you have an interest in music as great as your interest in art?
I think music is where I would end up. I think retiring is great, and I've had a very good time, but I think I have to get to be behind one particular thing. It used to be Harlem before I was married, and then when I had young children. Then I got involved with 1,000 things like foreign policy and whatnot, which are not necessarily. Music is, I think, my primary concern. There is all the question whether music or art are more visceral. And I think it depends on the person.
I do too.
What do you think?
I think probably the more intellectual you are, you're drawn to music.
Well, music does many things.
I saw the opera, the Acticana, however they say
Oh,
it.
yes, that's Philip Glass.
Yeah.
Well, that is a real piece of intellectual music. I think Philip Glass loved it, which he should have, as being the composer. You know that Guggenheim has that program, the Works in Progress.
Yes, I used
They
to go.
ran that program. They have the producer, the composer, some of the singers. What else is involved? The costume designer. And
Right.
The,
It's an early
there's a
look at
conductor.
things, yes. I'm still thinking about your it's art versus music more moving to people, and if so, why? I would have to say, generally, I go for the emotional experience. So I can walk by a lot of famous art, and but if I see something, it could be a cloud,
Yeah.
I get emotionally moved. And music owns me differently.
Well, I think it's a really interesting subject because you can take a song with you anywhere.
True.
Music, you can hear a Beethoven symphony anywhere.
Right.
There is one Kirchner show up at the Neue Galleria.
Right.
Now you go and see it. You take away the memory of anything that was emotionally moving to you. So you always have your mental picture. But in music, you have the physicality.
Yes, you're able to
of it.
experience this.
I
unhealthy.
do think there's an argument for the person who is more artistic, but I noticed that in children. When you did art and music, which I brought in art to it, some children will lie under the piano and have a snooze during the music, and then we're scribbling away for 45 minutes. Whereas the opposite is case.
Yes, I hear you.
The others are ready to go home with their coats on, and the others are making their art. It's, I think there is a personal distinction, but for me, it's music.
Thank you very much. So we've had a wonderful time with Mary.
Babbling on.
Humor is important, and she managed her life in an unusual way, or a lucky way, really. And that is, she managed to find work she loved, and the work became her play as well, which is a great gift, I mean, to her. Also, the idea that you have to take the risk, extend yourself, and wise enough in when she was at the lower school at Diller-Quaile, when things were a little too anxious, to call in for help through the psychiatrist once a month on Monday mornings. She also had I just think an unusual ability to allow people to relax around her. Call it humor, call it connection, call it goodwill. I think that a lot of us, some of us, get talked out of being that way, but it's a great gift to get along with people. And remember what she said, not I, we. And I think the we concept is very connecting, and her willingness, even what the kids were doing, is really to accept differences in people, or differences in emphasis in people, and a little hint there, and to recognize we all have potentially a contribution to make. So I thank you for tuning in, and remember, every time I say, go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and be sure to do it every day until the next time I see you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mary. Done.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadonsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadonsthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.